Viva Nehawu, viva! Viva COSATU, viva! Viva President Zingiswa Losi, viva! Viva General Secretary Zola Sapeta, viva! Viva Chairman Munyela, viva! Amandla! Comrades, let me recognize the leadership of our federation present here, led by Comrade Zingiswa Losi, the President of COSATU, and the General Secretary of Nehawu, Comrade Zola, as well as the Provincial Chairperson of Nehawu, Comrade Munyen. The regional leadership, the Chairperson, and I agree that I see that this region is becoming the most militant of Nehawu regions. We'll want to engage with these regions at some point, Comrade Chair. Let me greet the National Chairperson of our Young Communist League, Comrade Mabuse MP, and thank him for his words. And greet Comrade Matiwani, the President of SASCO, and also thank him for his kind words to the workers and the commitment for the students to link up with the workers and continue the struggle of the workers. And also acknowledge the presence of Deputy Minister of Health, Comrade Joe Patha, and his delegation, and thank him for his presence here. Good Dr. Patha. I thank Comrade Mulopo, our veteran from COSATU, and to thank him for his continued participation actively in the struggle of the workers. Last week or a few days ago, he was at Krizani Bara in the same program of Nehawu. We thought you are retired, but we see that the struggles of the workers keep bringing you back into the front line. Let me also, before I express the deepest gratitude and thanks on behalf of the SACP to all frontline workers, particularly healthcare workers, who have taken the responsibility to defend our country in its deepest hour of need. We appreciate that to all our frontline workers, and you in particular, health workers. We cannot be more grateful as a society, as a country. It is so disconcerting that whilst we have taken this responsibility to lead in the front line, your safety has been compromised by uncaring politicians. And I must indicate that I'm not a politician. If some of you think that I'm a politician, you are mistaken. I'm a revolutionary. I'm joining the frontline ranks of the revolution. I'm a revolutionary through and through. But the politicians are those who do not understand social change on behalf of the masses of our people. They think that they can mitigate the capitalist system against inequality, against poverty. There's no mitigation. The capitalist system must be ended. One of the first tasks, Comrade Zola, that we must undertake is to free our country from the chains of capitalism. The capitalist system that has also captured our governance system has made it impossible for us to advance our revolution. This system, comrades, makes government subservient to its profit interest. That is why even a matter as a life and death matter of healthcare workers of fighting against COVID-19, the capitalist wants to make profit of every condition. So it will not shock you why there's corruption in the provision of PPE and other COVID-related interventions. Because capitalism must make money, must make profit, whatever the cost. And governments that subscribe to the capitalist system themselves have no complete understanding of how to transform society, because they think balance sheet is the basis to approach transformation of society. It's a wrong perspective, it's a wrong posture. That is why we have always supported the call for government to honor the agreement it has made with workers for pay increase of the public sector workers across the board. There should be no blackmail because of COVID-19 to the workers, to now say to society we have no money to fight COVID-19, therefore we can't pay workers what is due to them, when they are actually increasing their working hours on a daily basis. This is despicable and it's unacceptable. On the one hand, Comrade Zingiswa, you know this very well, President. We have discussed interventions by government in this regard. They have put 200 billion rand in the care of commercial banks, so-called the Big Five. 200 billion guaranteed. Only 15 billion by 3 weeks ago had been spent. Yet they say they have no money. What about this guarantee that is there, that is not being utilized? Because those banks have no understanding of our society. They only understand international trade and big capitalism corporations. They fund corporations. They can't fund people in the township, in the rural areas, to improve their livelihoods. We want that money now because they were not able to spend it. That money must be spent to transform our society in the townships, in the villages, to pay workers and to make the state not a procurer of services, but a service provider. In other words, one of the problems we have today is that the state is a buyer of services from the private sector. It has no capacity. It's waning the capacity that it has always had. We want that state to rebuild that capacity and to stop the tender system that has corrupted the state system. If we undergo this process of the tender system, we will never be able to transform our society for the next 200 years. It will be impossible. Money will be stolen day in, day out. Today we've got RDP houses, so-called, all over the country, built and unfinished by tenderpreneurs. They are entering everywhere. Even during COVID-19 crisis, they built shacks, despicable conditions, and spent hundreds of thousands of rand per each shack. Respectful to our country and our people. And it must come to an end. And therefore, comrades, we want to say to comrades in our Comrade Zola, can you discuss this question of political power and its residence in South Africa? By this I mean, workers cannot borrow power to unscrupulous people who are divided into factions, have no concern for society, except how to amass resources for themselves. In this regard, nonetheless, it was not better, it was worse. He sold our country. Yes. In this regard, Comrade Zola, we want to say, to support the letter sent by the President of the ANC to all ANC members, because ANC members and ANC leaders, we are largely in control of the public purse across spheres of government. If we take responsibility to fight against corruption, we can win that fight against corruption. It must start inside the African National Congress and permit right into government. And we must deal with these factions that today they are only concerned about themselves, not the well-being of the people of this country. So as workers in this fight against corruption in PPEs and corruption in all other COVID-19 interventions, we must elevate the struggle against corruption across the board, including inside the African National Congress. Yes, we must deal with everyone who's involved in corruption, irrespective of the name of an individual that is associated with. And therefore, comrades, if Nehawu leads that intervention, we can stabilize our politics. Because at the moment, our movement is in crisis. The National Democratic Revolution itself is in deep crisis. What do we mean by this? The National Democratic Revolution is in crisis, without boring you with detail. The primary task of our revolution, the National Democratic Revolution, is to transform South African society from three interrelated problems or contradictions, but interrelated problems. These problems are so intertwined that you can't extricate one and leave the others. One fundamental problem is to build a common society, to unite our people, to build a democratic state and a democratic society, and end racial oppression, racial superiority, and therefore create a non-racial society. Create commonhood of South African people with the birthright to this country. That's one fundamental issue. That's why we fought against the racist system of apartheid. So that project to create a non-racial society remains an important task of this revolution. The second key interrelated problem is to end patriarchy, to end sexism, and create gender equality, and create a non-sexist society, and end unequal power relations between men and women in our society, so that we can have equality of all human beings. That struggle is an integral struggle of our common humanity. That's the task of the National Democratic Revolution. The third key interrelated question is to end all forms of exploitation of another human being by another human being. In this regard, we are talking about the ingrained system of exploitation, the capitalist system. That system can never bring about equality in society. It is a system that is designed to enrich the elite, a few, at the expense of the majority, and to exploit the majority, the workers, the working class. And therefore, to end that system, we need a new social system. So our servants in the trade unions, don't just be social democrats and think that we can go and cohabit with the capitalist system, our conditions will improve. The conditions will not improve. It will only be for a few. Majority will continue to live in poverty. Therefore, this action, mass action today, we support it as the Communist Party wholeheartedly. And we say to our government, Comrade President here, what is happening in this country? It's unacceptable. What is happening in governance across this country, it's unacceptable. We can do better. We are revolutionaries. We are a revolutionary movement. But we can't just have a jump leap, particularly, for instance, during this crisis. We should have implemented without waste of time the national health insurance. Instead of deepening the national health insurance, we built these so-called field hospitals. Not that they are not important. We build field hospitals. And we build them not in a place where we can transform them quickly. And we use the disaster management system to make particular interventions so that all of us agreed because of the crisis of COVID, this thing can be built. For instance, how do you build a hospital at Nazareth? What are you going to do after COVID with the hospital at Nazareth? Because you are going to dismantle the entire system. Why don't you build field hospital in other areas? China, for instance, have proven to the world it's possible to build a hospital in 7 days. So it's high time that South Africans become impatient with political discourse that is stagnated in this country, that is timing on the same spot. It doesn't want to move forward because you are told to build a clinic. It's a process that must take a year. Absolute nonsense. We want these interventions now, and that is why you as workers, you must continue this fight to demand your rights and make sure that we have a government that is listening to the concerns of the people of this country, the working class and the poor. Not to the interest of international capital, as well as the interest of local capital. We have the political power. Political power can transform all sections of our society. Therefore, my last point, Comrade Zola, as we support this full program of Nehawu, Dr. Pata Wankutwa mara bamunchicho kwa NEC Dr. Pata mara yena wangu we need key demands, particularly against corruption, that must be implemented. Mandate for the police services to arrest all the people who are mentioned in a number of various reports in government. We don't just want reports for the sake of reports. We want direct action, arrest of those who are involved. We want the criminal justice system to elevate its capacity and its ability to work. So in this regard, not only arrest, we want to see people in orange, no action taken. People are dying because we have no respect for life. The fundamental task of a revolution is to respect life and to defend life. That's why our people died in the front line, fighting to defend lives, fighting for the liberation of this country, not to win a democracy and then people come and steal it, capital come and steal this democracy. Capital was not part and parcel of our revolution. They were actually against our revolution. They only came in when they realized that this country may go the communist route. Because they knew we were going to own the entire resources, the entire wealth of the country in the hands of the masses. It will not be owned by big capital. That is why today, capital will never forgive anything that is done by the Communist Party. We launched a campaign against corruption many years ago. We had comrades who died as martyrs in this campaign. Pompa Nchangas is one of them. Comrade Timi on the VPS case and others in Limpopo who have paid supreme sacrifice. Most Parkway in the Northwest and several others who were championing our campaign against corruption in this country. Capital was nowhere to be seen. Capital only comes in when it is exposed. But we need a state that must build its own capital capacity. We need public banking system. We need control of our assets. The asset management industry must transform itself. The financial sector must transform itself. And the public must play a role in doing so. I've just heard Comrade Zingiswa that they want to sell, the Reserve Bank has actually issued a license for the sale of their shares in African Bank. That's unacceptable. When we are calling for the state to create its own public banks, because banks makes money out of your own money as individuals, as well as the money that is guaranteed by the National Reserve Bank, which is also least transformed. There are many issues we want to put on the table, Comrade Chair, but this is for the march. We want to wish you well in your mass action and say your money must be paid, corruption must be fought, but you are the eyes and ears in government report corruption even to us so that we can speak about it in public, particularly where they are intimidating you, so that we can deal with this question once and for all. They can't say there's no money to pay workers when the money is being looted left, right and center by criminals inside the government system and working with the criminals in the public, in the private sector system. Capital itself is involved in looting our country. That is why we need a trade union movement, Comrade President Tsingiswa. The trade union movement must discuss the concept of power in South Africa today. Amanda! Forward to socialism, forward! Down with capitalism, down! Thank you, frontline workers.
No more commission, no more commission. We make this country ungovernable. People must be arrested.